Hey Apit, how you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. Thanks, Amin. Oh my god.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Music Talks podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Rose. With me today, I have my very, very good friend who just graduated from his Bachelor's of Music Composition degree in UiTM. Hello, Apit.
Hello, Bobby.
Hi, how you doing? How's everything with you?
I'm fine, thanks. In fact, I've never been better. Thank you for asking. How about you?
I'm great. And I'm so happy that I finally get you on this podcast because I've been messaging you for this is like the third week now. And
Truly.
yeah.
Wow, this is very on the record. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you've been busy, right, with a lot of things?
I have been busy. Busy doing multiple things, different things, I can say.
And where are you now? You're in Selangor, you're in Johor?
I'm currently in Johor Bahru at my parents' house. Still in Johor Bahru for the past few months. I've been here, and I'm staying here for a while. For the time being, in the meantime, I'm looking for like a job opportunity in KL. Let's say, so I might be going back and forth to KL.
Oh, nice. And you told me a few months ago that you might be doing your master's or something. How's that going?
Oh yeah, about my master's plan. I have proceeded with my application a few weeks ago and also have sent my proposal, my research proposal, because the master's program that I'll be doing would be by research. And yeah, that has been only to that point. I'm currently waiting for a call back from UiTM for that.
Awesome. And I just have to ask, I know we are just going to jump ahead a few levels, but what is research in composition? I mean, like, how do you target something to research in composition? Is it like new ways of composing or new ways of arranging?
You just mentioned one of it. It's a huge field of researching. You can always do, you can declare methodology in composing. There are other things as ranging from something as simple as analyzation, going so specific into your own interest. Let's say you take a composition and then you analyze it in one aspect or many, if you dare enough. And also you can do composer's review about it. You know, it's like a biographical. So researching for composition is kind of a huge area you can dive into.
And when do you plan to start with this? Is there a plan for you to start going into it, or have you gone into it actually during your degree period?
So when I submitted my potential research for master's, that potential research proposal that I have submitted, right? In that proposal that I mentioned, I felt like it was necessary for me to do something that I'm interested in.
Awesome. It seems like you actually thought about it quite to a point, and I'm really excited to actually read whatever you're going to write about. Can't wait for that.
Oh my god. Yes, I am too. I'm excited for myself.
Nice. So a lot of people outside the music program have actually been asking me about the music program itself. So how is it different from writing a song? Why do you need to be a certificate holder in composition or arranging to be able to write songs? Why do you need to go through close to a decade's worth of music program just to quote unquote compose songs? Why do you think so?
Right, you just asked me a multiple question in like one set. Let me answer one by one.
Yeah, sure.
First of all, if we talk about composition, if you call yourself a composer, you basically arrange you might arrange, orchestrate, or even write scores for multiple instruments for the written songs that you have. So composition is deeper than songwriting. Right? When it comes to songwriting, it involves three aspects, which is melody and chords. And of course lyrics, if it's something,
Vocal.
that has words, something that has words in it. But composition has so many layers to it. You gotta think in so many angles. It's like what are the structures? You gotta identify the structures that you would wanna achieve. You gotta identify the instrumentation. You gotta identify the direction of the arrangement itself as a composer. So I would go answering your question with that first, differentiating composition and songwriting. So in answering the question, why do you need to be a certificate holder in composition? You don't need. This is my humble opinion. Anybody can disagree. I humbly can say this, being somebody who graduated from it. It's not a necessity for someone who wants to be a composer, but it does make a change in your profile, in one's profile. Because in a music program, specifically composition, you'll be learning the library, a set of music that has been composed before, which contains palettes of compositional tools that are proven to be working since the beginning of time. Well, the beginning of time is a far-fetched word to say. since like centuries, I would say. Yeah, centuries.
Yeah.
Because if we go back to starting from Gregorian chant, it was just a single line, and then it kind of modulated from there. Everybody who decided to write songs or compose, explore this field of music in a vast manner, in so many ways, in a vast manner, that they end up developing something new every decade, every century. So when you go into a composition program, this might sound like wrong, but you kind of have to know all these things. Because it's not necessary that you will use it, but you will know it for sure. And it will be useful in the process of finding your own sound.
And at the same time, I assume, even though, like you said, you will use it, you might not use it, but you have to know it so that you know what doesn't work as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, what doesn't work, what works. That's one way to see it. But I preferably, in this era of living, I don't think many composers, professional composers would know what would work and what not. But some composers might even disregard what works. Let's talk about this new area of music, which is new music, right?
Uh-huh.
It's a crazy genre that I haven't got the chance myself to dive into, but I did study it. It was a course in my program, and if you go about it, it's basically not the normal song that we hear on the radio or even the normal composition that we have heard before. It consists of sound, free sound, and it takes you to feel. In fact, sometimes it provokes your emotions. So that's why hence it's called new music, and it's not yet popularized, especially locally in Malaysia, per se. To answer your question, yes, you can see it in one way or another. With learning what you learn in the program, you might get the idea, at least the idea of what works and what not.
Sorry, before we continue, I just wanted to ask. You said songs not normally made. Does that mean it's composed not based on conventional compositional methods, or they actually literally make new elements of sounds and new, I don't know, new rhythm, new time signatures, God knows what? Is that it?
Okay, one type of new music I can mention here is conceptual music, which is in composition, we call it a method conceptual. It's where you use sound and you might not have a tempo to it. In fact, you don't even have time signatures. It's a free, if you were to notate it on paper, you might not have a specific time signature for it. So it's new in that sense. Well, it's new to us, but not new to those, especially in the Western countries, actually. They have explored this for quite some time now, even though it's not like a popular music, but they have been doing that actually for years. And we have had pioneers almost 100 years. Just not many. The number is growing, just we don't have that many. And not everybody wants to explore.
Yeah, and I have to expect, like when you say out of time, there's no specific time signature, there's no specific writing to it. I have to ask, wouldn't that be like Arnold Schoenberg, John Cage, avant-garde kind of music? Wouldn't that be the same?
Yes, avant-garde is some term used to describe new music, but new music is the big genre. New music is what we call, like, okay, avant-garde is under new music.
Oh.
It's like we have various kind of new music. Avant-garde is one of it. Like we have minimalism is actually an aspect in music as well, which something that John Cage has done before. So yeah, because I'm not actually familiar with new music as I mentioned.
Oh yeah. As somebody who doesn't know, what do you know that you don't know? That's what I wanted the people who are listening to this to find out. Because a lot of people are always scared of, oh, I'm not sure about this thing. This thing is very unknown to me, so I'm just not gonna dabble into it.
I see.
Yeah.
Yep. Everybody, well, most people have that actually, including myself in the first place.
That's fair. That's totally fair. So, what actually got you into writing scores? What got you into it? How did you start? When did you start? I actually never asked you about this before.
Right? Oh my god, let's go back from the start.
Yeah.
Let's go from the beginning of time. Okay,
Since 1957.
Oh my gosh, I'm not that old. But yeah, I have an old phone. Well, I started writing since I was in high school, when I was in marching band. I was in a marching band, which is or you can call it a concert band, if you mind.
Yeah. Oh,
band.
I would rather stick to marching band, because in the episode before this, I was just explaining to Ainur. I get so confused when people say, I'm in a concert band. Oh, but it's not a 4-piece band, 5-piece band. It's like a whole marching band. Like, oh, see? There's a difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's a different podcast that people should check it out.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
So let's go with the word marching band.
Mm-hmm.
Marching band. I was in a marching band. I started writing when it was quite late because I started learning instrument first. I started being a saxophonist first. I learned the instrument, or at least some knowledge of it when I was in school. Well, picked up some that habits as well, because this is the earlier years of playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then in Form 5, I realized that I had one senior who arranges music through hearing. I think this is what I think. This is my theory. He arranges through hearing and through really deep listening of music, and then he just vomits his ideas out of it. But he's good with notation, of course, when it comes to arranging.
Oh yeah.
I think for somebody who arranges music like that has to know the mechanism of notation software.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was hanging out with him, I looked at the process and I was like, oh, I can do this. So I started arranging, if I'm not mistaken, the first ever piece that I kinda started arranging was by Lana Del Rey. It was Young and Beautiful. It was for my marching band. So yeah. From then, I realized that I like doing this. It's like you can do so many things from the original song, which arranging is you take someone else's song or already made song. It can be written by you or by some other composers, and then you arrange it to fit your own direction. As for my case, it was a marching band, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I choose the instrumentation, and I arrange it in a sense where it was suitable to play on the field. So that's why I discovered interest in songwriting. Wow, if you're talking about songwriting, I never actually started songwriting until I got into UiTM. Like really writing songs. It was in the first semester that I decided, why don't I start writing something new? And it was a pop song, apparently I decided to do. So yeah, this worked.
Nice. But I just have to ask, a lot of people say, and I agree though, it's crazy that you write for bands or orchestras, ensembles. Even that's when you started, and until now you write for. I remember that you were writing for my Diploma recital showcase, and you even write until now for some orchestras. I don't know if I'm wrong. How do you actually keep up with it? How do you manage it? The multiple lines, writing solely for that band, because I know that you perform with some bands outside as well. So how do you like change hats, change perspectives, writing for these different groups?
So when I started, it was a marching band, and then when I entered UiTM, it was a diverse group of people that I met, right? Okay, I have to mention one thing before I say anything about this. I am a fan of soundtracks and musicals from the beginning of time.
I remember.
So that really helps. I think listening really helps in whatever area of music you are doing. Listening is actually one thing that you always have to do, and it does pay off. Until now, I'm still listening to just improve my ability to just, exploring new music or whatever. But to move perspective, because I've never put it in words. That's it.
Essentially, that's the idea of this podcast. Putting in words what we do, because I'm pretty sure nobody has ever asked you this in an audition or an interview, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Truly. Which is interesting. Let's go back to what I said just now.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned that my interest has always been, and still is, musicals and mainly soundtracks. Whether it's original motion picture scores or original motion picture soundtracks, which are songs or pieces written for motion pictures or musicals, which are performed live. Having experienced and also explored through listening, actually, in listening different kind of music helps me a lot. But at the end of the day, when I start writing, I always have to shut myself down, because we all have thoughts in our head, right? We all have vision. We all have our own initial vision of what the music is gonna be like. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you might go crazy with a piece of music, which I normally do. At the end of the day, I would normally sit down and really think about the instrument that I'm writing for. Say, I started with marching band, so I know it took 4 years, 5 years of playing in a marching band to know what instrument does what instrument has what tone color. So through that, I identify what musical idea would be suitable for this instrument, for that instrument. In fact, some ideas might be so perfect for a certain instrument that you will feel it deeply. Some ideas might not work, but that's how you explore. But tone colors play a huge part in it. So when I entered UiTM, as I mentioned earlier, I met a diverse group of musicians who play in a different kinds of ensemble. So it took time for me to actually really sit down and think about my direction every time I'm writing. But coming from somebody who likes to listen to musicals and soundtracks, I have always wanted to write for orchestra. But only recently, after graduating a degree program, which is a composition program, that I learned the conventional, you might say, the traditional way of writing, which, as we talked earlier, it works. The formula works, right? So you know what instruments to layer, what instruments layer. I give you an example. So in an orchestra, if you have an idea for the first violin, so the first violin would play this line, a melodic phrase, or a motif. If you feel like it's not strong enough or not emphasized enough, it's proven, like it's written in a word. Somebody has put it in book that you can emphasize it by layering it with the flute. And it worked. And in fact, it produced a different tone color. So, when I composed before degree and after degree, it was a different process. In fact, it's still a different process now. I'm exploring myself still. In terms of changing perspective, when you mentioned I play in different ensembles, like I have my own band, not my own band, our band. Because I basically have this one singer that we normally accompany. So we accompany this singer. It's a jazz setting, jazz, soul, and blues, which was new to me. So what I did was I had to listen to a lot of heavy jazz music because of her voice, I must say.
Yeah.
But it took me listening to some music that I've never listened before, and then understand the mechanism of writing for the horn section. So yeah, from then I developed. So instead of just writing for orchestra, more ensemble, classical style, so I moved into modern. So it took experiences. It took me being in the ensemble to really understand. Well, you can listen and discover yourself, but I did it in a traditional way where I was in it. Which what I did in the first place in marching band back then. Understand what instrument does what, and then apply it in my style of writing. So in changing perspective, I don't think personally there's a specific method, but it works for me to really visualize. Visualization does work because there's a different mood if I were to write something for myself and if I was to write something for other people, because I need to know what other people want. Every time when I'm appointed to say, let's say you have a project for me, and then we discuss about the project, we discuss about the the big things that we discuss about, which is the form normally, the key, what key, how many instruments. So those things I have to consider, and also I try to interject my style in it, but not too much, because it's for other people. But if I were to write for my own self, say I was not writing. It was because there was this specific assignment that I did in UiTM. It was nice. I arranged a Piramli song. It was Engkau Laksana Bulan, and I found myself enjoying every bit of it because it was a different arrangement that it was an orchestral piece, but I found myself just exploring with it. So it's different when I write for somebody else and I write for myself. I have to really divert my mind, knowing that, okay, this is for somebody else. If I were to interject a little bit, like to inject at least a little bit of my style, it wouldn't be 100%, but I always do that, actually. Whether or not people notice it, but I always do put my style.
Yeah. And it's that certain things like where this melody goes, where this line leads to. It's all this, even if it's just a one note difference, it's still your signature, your style. Right?
Yeah. Apparently in music, it works that way. Like the little things that make the change.
Yeah. And I remember that it's so specific up to a point that when we were working on my recital together, you were asking me, okay, like you said, form, key, obviously, what's the song? What's the piece? Who is it by? What year was it composed? And then on top of this, form, key. And then you were also asking me, how many saxophones? How many trumpet players? Who are playing the trumpets? Who is playing the saxophone? I was like, at that time, and it's true, you know, what you say. At that time, I had no idea. Why is it that guy A, you have to write differently for Mr. A instead of Mr. B? And then Mrs. A is on the saxophone. Oh, but you can't write for Mrs. A how you write for Mrs. B. And I was like, but why? And then you showed me the score. And it was actually after you made the whole score and then you showed me, oh, see this range, this note, this one note, only Mr. A can do it. I was like, oh,
yeah. Actually.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember mentioning that to you. I mean, I do remember mentioning that to you specifically about that note.
Yeah. That's scream, right?
Yes. About note, this is what I always do. Like recently, the recent project that I did was for it was for a school gamelan ensemble.
Okay.
Just weird. It was weird. It was a contemporary piece because Akma was going to play a solo violin on it.
Mm-hmm.
Akma is our good friend. He's a solo violinist, and he is currently teaching at school just to let the listeners, All right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Akma requested that I wrote a new piece, where he can play a solo violin, accompanied by an ensemble of gamelan.
For listeners who are not sure of what gamelan is, it's a group of traditional percussion instruments that was formed in Malaysia. In Indonesia. Well, there's some discussion around that, but yeah, essentially you can go ahead and look up on Google about this. Okay, keep going.
There would be a deep discussion about where that gamelan comes from.
I know.
Okay, so let's say about strings, right? For example, Akmal, I know how high he can play the violin with a comfortable tone. So I would, let's say if I even forget his range, his good range, because everybody has different capabilities. So to just add to your point, why I do that, why I say different person can do different things in music. That's what we are granted with. We have different capabilities. We have different things to offer. It might sound the same if you were coming from a different teacher in some cases, But still, I believe in the sound of individuality.
Mm-hmm.
The simple thing about it is range. Akmal can play so wide of a range that I was not worried about writing. But it was for a school, so then again, I write quite simple. But then, the next example would be trumpet. Trumpet is something that I really carefully write for. Because, in my opinion, not everybody can play that high note and execute what you have in mind. There have been years where I write, it was not a success, but I have also achieved times that there were successes, like high notes where accented notes were played out. So
Yeah.
Besides tone, color, range, everybody has different individuality. You gotta move perspectives in between that, like around that, and whether you write for yourself, the direction might change if you write for a different person, for a different setting.
Yeah, and I'm very sure that a lot of people are guilty of it. At least I am. When I wrote for a bandmate of mine, and then he was like looking at me like, "How long do you want this glissando to be?" I told him, "Oh, not long. I don't know, like 1 octave." And he's just like, "No. I want something like, can you do that? Oh, no. That's so hard. No, I mean like, and then I was there telling him, this was me at 20 years old. Oh yeah, but Arturo Sandoval makes it look so easy. And he was just looking at me like, oh, yeah, sorry, ignore what I said.
Yeah, of course you were writing for Arturo Sandoval.
Yeah, and it's funny though, because I actually showed for all you listeners out there, I don't know if you remember, in UPM, Leonard Yap, the conductor of RTM, actually teaches us jazz ensemble. And there was a time that I wrote for an ensemble, an 8-piece ensemble, if I'm not mistaken. And then he said like, he looked at the score and he was like, oh, this is very good. People at RTM would be so happy to get this. And I was like, thank you, sir. Is there anything I can change? And then he said, yeah, the whole thing. I was like, wow. Because you are writing for fellow students, for your batchmates, for your seniors and juniors. You're not writing for RTM. I'm like, wow. Ouch.
Yeah.
That hurt. Yeah.
I have listed that. Well, in fact, I have developed this method. Well, not method per se, my style of writing that every time people receive my scores, they're like, why are you giving me these scores now? And why are these scores like this? Are you crazy? Like, you guys can do it. I always convince them that they can do it. In fact, they can do it. It's just, when reading it for the first time, they would get discouraged. Because, who wants to play complicated music, right? I mean, right away, at first, unless you are professional musicians who read
and especially if it's for you, if it's like it's my exam, I need you to play for me, and then if you give them something simple to accompany you with, it's totally fine. But this is like, you're gonna be leading this thing, like, but isn't it your exam though?
Truly.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so hard. That's another challenge, at least for me, that I face. Like, when I show them this piece, and initially they're just like, whoa, 30-second notes all the way, and like, it's not crazy, it just looks crazy for now. I mean, obviously it wasn't all 30-second notes, but like, initially it's just like, so of course, on the surface, at a glance, it looks crazy. But if you put in effort, and I've seen you play crazier things, and it's so hard to convince them of that one. So yeah, I totally understand what you mean.
Yeah. They actually can do it. It's just, reading it for the first time and then seeing it, and then they would just get discouraged. Not to say that they want to play, but they just, oh my gosh, why are you giving me this? They have that kind of thing in mind. Yeah, so far, I mean, writing for exam. But I might be writing soon again for exams. I'm writing for myself now.
Oh, that's awesome. I know for a fact that you told me last time it's therapeutic for you to like stay up until 3 a.m., 5 a.m. and just write through the night, right? Does that still happen
Yep.
for you?
That's apparently, I mean, it's not a good thing. Listeners, that's not a good method. Don't do it. But yeah.
You heard it. You heard it right here. Do not stay up and write songs.
Yes. I mean, you can if you want.
If that's how you work, right?
Yeah. I mean, what works, right? I mean, because I always tend to stay because I don't want to lose it. But there are also times when writing and resting and writing again after a good rest would help actually. Especially when you write for some other people or some other direction, because you want to make sure that your ideas are not based on yourself getting exhausted or, from the time when you are tired. Because there were times when I was in university doing the program. There were times that I was writing when I was tired. So there were some ideas that was actually, when I think about it, these are the beginning years. So it's like, something could have been done there. So yeah, that happens because, well, we are all human. We get tired. So you just want to write. You have the intention, but your brain and your body just do not allow it so much to the maximum capacity. But yeah, it was fun. No regret.
Yeah, I definitely believe you when you say that, because it's all part of the process, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Truly.
So coming from this, some people tend to lose track of their goal, like what to do after that, as in after writing a score or after a performance, they don't know what to do after that. So what about you? Do you, like, when you finish a score, then you pass it to somebody that hired you, or even for yourself after you finish writing for a whole orchestra or ensemble? What do you do? Do you think like, okay, let's find a new song to write for, let's find a new project to work on, or do you actually sell the scores, or do you actually like go for a performance, like I'm going to find a performance just so I can put these scores to good use? What do you actually do?
Let's answer the first thing that you said. Some people tend to lose track of their goal, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I tend to do it, but I do have moments of it. I can say in some years I often lose track of my goals because this comes from doing so many things. If you are a performer and then you write, and then also especially when you are studying, you are performing outside, and then you also write. That's just crazy. It's a whole lot of things to do. Though in the same field, but you gotta dive with your mind, right? So it was not easy for me to grasp the idea that I need to really concentrate. I mean, concentrate is a very common word used inside over the word. Okay, let's talk about goals. I might say if somebody has a strong goal, it would not be easy to lose your way from it. It might be easy to be astray from it for a while, but if you have a goal that is so strong, you might come back to it. Like for writing orchestras, let's say. I'm speaking on behalf of myself because let's go back to the mentioned points in this podcast. I started in the beginning from writing for marching bands to orchestras to smaller ensembles into modern music. Okay. When I was writing for modern music, right, there were times where I lost the interest or the motivation to write for some time. But I can honestly and proudly say this, I still love it because I have visited some scores, started to just finish whatever I left off, and then keep exploring what next songs I might do arrangements of, or I might write. So as for me, you gotta know what you want, because music is a very, very vast area, especially in this time. Okay, because composition is an art of expression.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to express yourself, you get to decide how to express yourself. So what's your goal? For me, I have a goal, a long-term goal of becoming a conductor, a music director. Let's say a music director, because music director can also conduct an orchestra. So I do have that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that it's going to be a long journey, but in getting there, I will just do everything to have fun with the process, because the word that you mentioned just now was process.
Yeah.
You gotta go through this, ups and downs, the wrong things, the mistakes, the success part, the failing part, especially the failing part. Because how would you know what works or what not without even trying? So if you were to ask me for other people, if one person doesn't know what to do after a performance, I would say you can hold on to the moments of the performance that you had, or writing a score, the moments that you have after writing a score, you can hold on to it. I have done that before. I hold on to it, like, sometimes for a long time.
Hold on as in cherish, savor the moment kind of thing.
Yes, cherish and really, really enjoy. Oh God, let's do it again. You can do that, but my thought would be, let's move along, because there's always new things to be doing. There's always new songs for you to write. There's always new songs for you to arrange that need to be arranged. Like, these songs need your attention, actually. How do I keep going? I find myself exploring new music to listen to. Different kinds, different genres. Like I said, I started off with liking musicals and soundtracks, but I also have discovered more and more about myself that I like. I don't know why, but I don't know why I questioned it, but I like melancholic songs. I like ambient sounds.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I like Lana Del Rey. It has a very dark undertone to it. Her songs have dark undertones when it comes to mood. So I recently introduced myself to Billie Eilish discography. So I like that. The fact that it's a different thing. So how do I keep going is that I listen to new music that I have never listened before. Okay, let me mention this. When it comes to listening music, right, this is my opinion. As a composer, I've heard it before, people say it, I'm going to say it again in this podcast.
Go ahead.
We don't have the luxury to choose. We have the luxury to choose, but it would be nice if one person can just listen to everything. You gotta have an ear to listen to everything. You would have your own preferences. Like me, I have my own preferences. I can lay it down here, but I've never, I can tell it to myself honestly, choose like what's good and what's bad. Because in the process of exploring new style or adding new style, new color palette to your arrangement or writing style, composing style, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might be surprised that you find these new things from a different set of songs that you were not interested in the first place.
Yeah.
Let's say, I once, in my study years, found that, let me say it out loud, I'm not a metalhead. Is it what you call yourself? I don't know. Who listens to metal songs?
Yeah.
I don't know, metal,
rock,
hard metal songs.
heavy metal, yeah.
Yeah, those genres, I'm not the person to go to. But I had a close friend, somebody that I spent a lot of time with during my study years, and he introduced me to some good songs, great songs in fact, which have good sounds, good essences, like, that I could extract from. And I realized, I was like, hey, this is good. This is good if you extract and then write it for orchestra. You know?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So those kind of things are so surprising for me to find. And I realized from that and then that as a composer, you gotta listen to everything. You gotta listen to everything, even if, like, you don't have to, like, stop having preferences or deny your preferences, but it's not wrong to listen to all kinds of music. Like, okay, that's a funny story, Steve. I'm currently working with my dad for the time being, right? Doing breakfast in the morning. So we have customers going in and out at the store. So I listen to different kind of music every morning. And then there was this one uncle he pointed that out. It was like, alright, for listeners, I come from a very close background. I come from Lakinfurdan, a very hood living neighborhood. My neighborhood is a very full-on Malay conventional setting. It has that setting. So I had this one uncle who comes. When he was coming, I was listening to Andrea Bocelli.
Okay.
Andrea Bocelli is a singer. He's an Italian, an amazing singer. A tenor, you might say.
Okay.
So while listening to that uncle came, and then he did not say anything. After that, I changed the mood all the way from Andrea Bocelli to Uji Rashid. So he was like, oh, lagu kau ni international Tadi tak faham, ni dah faham dah. Like, oh my god. Yes, that's how diverse I could get with exploring. That is songs with words. If I were to open orchestra song, which I have at my dad's floor, you know what I open? John Williams, as usual.
But that's too mainstream though.
Well, if you don't want to go mainstream direction, you can go, I don't know, I know mainstream composers, but I know James Horner, John Williams, Franz Reznor, I don't know. You check that out. It might be nice. It has electronic sound to it. But yeah, I go to John Williams because I like orchestra, right? So John Williams has been and still is my kind of idol, my iconic figure in writing. Because I figured that he has good method in writing. So there were times I listened to that at my dad's store, and my dad would be like, lagu apa ni? Lagu orchestra. You know, the kind of thing. So yeah, just to add to the point where I was heading, as a composer, you should be listening to a lot of music, different kinds, if possible, as much as you can.
I mean, I just want to interject and just ask, not say, but ask rather. You said a lot, as a composer, you have to listen to a lot of music, but wouldn't you agree if I were to say, as a musician, or as a music person, composer, performer, educator, even me doing my therapy work, I need to know a lot of songs different kinds of repertoire, because I can never say, what, you like that song, that's so bad, because that's just chaos in my line of work. But wouldn't you say it's the same for everyone? Like, there should never be one music student that would say, I don't like that. Or that song doesn't really have any use to me. Or even worse, that song is downright bad. Because I've heard these kind of people, like, you want to do, I can't remember what she did, but like she performed. I think she's a performer. And then I asked her, like, oh, do you know about this song? And then I showed her the song, and she's like, oh, that song is so bad. What music is this? But don't you think that's kind of a shallow thinking?
I don't normally describe it as shallow thinking, but I get where you're coming from. That, to answer your question, it is for everyone, performer, educator, for a music person to listen to a lot of music, but as a composer specifically, coming from, okay, let me rephrase that, as a music scholar.
Yeah.
Right? As a music scholar.
Uh-huh.
It would be shallow if you can only say that song is bad or downright bad. If you are, a better music scholar, you might be able to point out what are the points that are bad. But also, you might also be able to recognize what are other things, if not many, one thing that is good. Because I believe every musician has its own versatility and, like I said, individuality, right?
Yeah,
everyone
their
has
own
their own
style.
direction.
Yeah.
I would say, as a music scholar, listening a lot would help you identify these things, and being in a music program, studying music in university, furthering your studies, would help identifying with details. What makes a song bad? Like you say, what works and what not. What are the components that make it less decent?
Yeah.
Now, as a music scholar, it's nice. You would notice that a good scholar would be able to point things out in detail. Like, maybe not as many points right away, but if the song is obviously bad, which there are bad songs. Because, in my opinion, for some people who don't come from a professional music setting or a music study background, might say it's bad because it's not his or her preference. I have met that kind of people. It's just because they cannot get the idea of how the song works. I am surrounded with that kind of people. I'm surrounded with people who don't listen to orchestras that much. So yeah, if we are talking about bad as in just because you don't like that song, that would be different. But if it's downright bad, as a music scholar, as a composer, if you are a performer and educator, you can find that out. That's amazing. That's nice. I speak on behalf of as a composer, as myself. It would be nice to know what makes it bad or less decent. And the song doesn't have to be bad, actually. It's just, it doesn't fit perfect. But then again, we are in a very expressive field. So, if you were to say, let's pick a band A, writes the song, performs it, and it's a terrible song. Only because at a certain point, if you point that points to them, they might not get it. Because to them, this is the direction that we want to go. You just simply don't get it, or you don't listen enough. Because, because that's the difficult part about being a music scholar.
Yeah.
Especially for somebody who wants to pursue master right now. I noticed that we are in a field where everything is very subjective. To put down in words, it's just so difficult. But when you can do it, respect.
Yeah, when you can actually implement it. The reason I actually chuckled a bit is because when you say that, immediately the first thing that pops into my head is a band from 1950s, 1960s, and they were so crazy. People liked their song around the world, and they were from Britain, of course. And then they came out with Sergeant Pepper, and everybody's just like, what kind of music is that? And for all you listeners, if you don't know, it's actually the Beatles. And people are like, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club. Man, what does that even mean? And why is the music like all over the place? Why is it like, it seems like you guys ran out of cash to record at a proper studio, and you know, it seems like they didn't have any planning and all, but that's their intention. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's where they are coming from.
Yeah.
And to them, it's actually good. It's nice being in their bubble where it's a place where they are in one place, let's say, because being in an ensemble, you gotta be in one page, like on one page with everybody. So they perform it. Okay, having said that, like, okay, I think I'm venturing into a field that I've only recently, experienced. I found that in this era, we talk about this in class, in the seminar class, in composition seminar class. This time around, people listen to sound. They don't listen to song ideas. That will be the main. So if the song is executed nicely, it should still be a nice song.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just a matter of discussion.
Yeah. And it's an interesting discussion to be raised. But maybe for another episode.
Yes, this has gone long enough for one question.
Yeah. Hey, no, it's totally fine.
Let me add. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
For composers out there who want to sell scores, there are multiple platforms nowadays. Like I recently discovered from my friend in the university, you can go into sheet music class and sell your scores online. Or you can always do it traditionally by word passed around through experience. Yep. So I do sell scores, just to mention that here.
Yeah.
I do sell scores, not whether the scores have been done beforehand or after being requested. I do it both ways. Just to answer your question.
Yeah. I know that you make scores first and foremost, and then you sell them. Because it's not one of those business ventures where like, what should I sell? And then you just make random scores and then you just sell it to people, you know?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know you work that way. So before we end, I just have a short discourse that I want to raise and see if you want to put your thoughts into this. So I had a long discussion with a friend of mine in UPM about the fear of composition in this decade, or in this era, as you said. So we were talking about how Beethoven and the people back in the days, Haydn and all, they would just write songs. They would just sit down under a tree, like how we would sketch things, or we would text message someone. They would just pull out a notepad and just like, I'm going to create one of the best sonatas people have ever played right here under this tree. And it's so normal for them. But then, throughout the course of time, throughout history, people realize that, I need to make one thing that is great instead of 10 okay things or pieces, songs. I have to make one terrific score that can last for a whole decade instead of making one song every day or every week. And, we've read histories of people who make chamber music every evening and a big performance every weekend that works for the Esterhazys. And then there's even stories of prodigies who 3 years old wrote scores, 5 years old wrote an opera, and of course he was a prodigy. That's the word of prodigy right there. But then people tend to fear composing nowadays because, yeah, like I said, they can't seem to make perfect scores, and because of that, it tends to alienate the idea of your own music regularly being produced. What do you think about that?
Thanks for that.
Because-
Locally, I get what you mean,
Mhm.
but coming from music background, like music study background, I've had a lecturer who informed me aggressively, I must say,
Yeah.
that that it's nice to write every day. In fact, John Williams, there's one of the interviews that John Williams was asked, and he mentioned that it's nice to write every day, even if it's for 15 minutes. So I get where you're coming from. I am also dwelling on that thought currently because I'm at home, right?
Yeah.
So I do agree with that. Back then, they write more stuff than we do today, but it's just a matter of process. Right now, life has just gotten more
Busy?
compact. Yeah, busy. You can say busy, but I believe in the complexity of life.
Yeah.
Every day we have a lot of other things to do. So to be writing, there's not enough chance to get unless you are given that luxury or opportunity to do that, and then that would be great. And if you do it, it would be the case of if you write every day, say for in the span of 6. What are the chances that you might have actually written some epic song
Yeah.
that will last,
Yeah, a masterpiece.
a masterpiece, like your own masterpiece. I mean, you might not discover it right away, but it's there. It's there actually, because this goes to the idea of putting hours of work into your craft.
Mhm.
This goes to that idea. But if you have the knowledge and your own direction, I also believe that whatever works, some people write differently. Okay, let's say it like this. I've been told that I must come up with melody first when I first started degree composition, right?
Well.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
That thing, I used to not believe in that. I mean, see, it's just a matter of choosing the direction you want to go. But in answering like the thing that you mentioned just now,
Mhm.
my thoughts would be, if you have the luxury, do it. Do it every day. Because you might not know where it can get you to. You might not know what you will stumble upon.
Mhm.
In fact, if I was given that chance, I would.
Yeah. And you're not the only one. More often than not, we just don't generally have time. But yeah, it's similar to the closest analogy I would have is somebody asked me one time, like, how do you, I don't know, it's something random, why are you so determined at practicing drums every day for 15 minutes? And I told them, like, how can you speak to me, how can you form a whole sentence to me normally? And then, like, what do you mean, talking? Yeah, how can you talk so fluently? I've been doing this since I was young. Exactly, because you literally do it every day, and
Yep.
so because it happens every day, and we've heard, I don't know if you remember, but we actually joined a bunch of different workshops back in our diploma years where people would say, until it becomes an extension of yourself, practice your instrument until it becomes an extension of your hand, whereby you sit down immediately, the saxophone sounds just pop out, and I'll sit down and, I can just invent a drum solo. I mean, I'm not a master at drumming, but it becomes second nature. So I assume writing songs every day for 15 minutes, it's just the same as talking because we spend so much time doing things. Just sit down and doing it. Yeah. So,
hence it goes with putting hours to it.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be hours, but if you put a certain amount of time every day, that's interesting. I just recall there's a lecturer who mentioned this. It was a U3 lecturer in UiTM who mentioned this. Like, if you find a good time for you to write every day, do it. And he said that.
Yeah.
And like him, it was in the morning, so he would do that.
Yeah, and I assume it's not like I have time now, 5 minutes. And then tomorrow is like half an hour. Then the next day is like, I'm not up to it because I don't really have time. No, I think it's more of make time, put it in your schedule kind of thing, right? That's what he means?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's kind of an everyday thing that you do. It doesn't have to be long at first. Like, it gets longer if you enjoy it enough and if you discover yourself more involved in it eventually. But if you have something bigger to work on, you will spend much more time. I mean, I don't know about other people, but that's how I work. Like you mentioned, I can stay up, the whole night and whatever.
Yeah.
That's because that's how I work. If I have something, I would spend more time when I have a certain direction. If I don't, I get the freedom to think or to feel about what I want to write. So it would be lesser time. But it doesn't have to be no time at all. Because like other skills, it needs to be brushed up. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I totally understand.
Yep.
Awesome. So, Apit, thank you so much for your thoughts, your inputs. Not only for music composition or arranging, but for music generally. And I'm happy that you're able to talk about your experiences, talk about how you got to where you are, how you've arrived at this point, and your plans afterwards for masters and all. And I'm glad that you're on this podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed myself so much doing this. I found myself saying things that I would not. I wouldn't say it myself, but thank you. Thank you for being a good, listener to you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me in your podcast.
It's my pleasure. And ladies and gentlemen, as usual, if you have any questions about music arranging, composition, if you think something I said, because I tend to think less than I say. So if I said something wrong, you can just, call me out on it. Send me an email at aminbob13@yahoo.com about any of these, and I'll ask Apit, I'll ask the past guests that I've had here, or I can get somebody who's related to this topic to answer you, either directly or on a future episode. Thank you so much.